Not too long ago, this room would have been much smaller, and we would have been talking in very theoretical terms. We would have been discussing the need to change the defense procurement system, the valley of death, our ongoing movement away from large, exquisite systems to cheaper and attritable systems, the need for autonomy, for a more resilient defense industrial base. I'm sad to say that nothing about this conversation is theoretical anymore. Just 2 years ago, I made a bold prediction, which is always a very bad thing for a venture capitalist to do because we are so often wrong. But during the Reagan National Defense Forum, I tweeted, "Time is running out with Silicon Valley." I tried to explain that we had about 18 to 24 months to figure out how to procure these systems. Because not only would businesses go out of business waiting for the DoD to make decisions, but investors would get tired of waiting. Talent would move on to other areas that seem more promising and more flourishing. We had to act with urgency. We had to move faster. Because American defense and the defense of our allies depended on us, the people in this room. And then just a few months later, that prediction became a moot point. Because Russia invaded Ukraine and reminded us why defense technology is not something to merely debate in rooms in theory. We were living in a new geopolitical reality. Time wasn't running out. The sand was already at the bottom of the hourglass. History had begun again. And we understood that we were entering a new, more violent age than the recent past. In that narrow window before the world changed, I also put out a thesis. Maybe it was a little shocking, maybe seemed a little bit controversial to some of the people that I work with in San Francisco, or the friends that we have in San Francisco. But in that essay, I said that my firm, Andreessen Horowitz, one of the largest venture capital firms in the world, was unabashedly and unanimously supporting America. That we were betting on America. And that this wasn't some marketing gimmick or some ESG adjacent nonsense. This was a real strategy. We're in the business of value creation, of taking bets on things that get very big very fast. And that not only were we betting on America, but America and our allies are best off when we are building companies in support of the national interest. We believe that a strong America means a strong world, a safer world, a more civilized world, which is a word that we should use more often. And that technology is the backbone of maintaining this order of civilization and always will be. We called this movement American dynamism. And wow, is this thesis obvious in retrospect. In the investing business, sometimes you take bets on things that other people don't see. But this bet should have been so obvious. Many of you in this room are veterans, you've served your country, and so maybe you intuit this more than many of us in Silicon Valley. And it might have just taken a little bit of courage or a little bit more time for those of us in San Francisco to say the word America out loud. But the great investors will tell you that one of the greatest certainties of the last 150 years has been the growth and dynamism of the United States of America. Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger at their recent annual meeting in Omaha said, and they repeatedly remind their shareholders, never bet against America. Buffett reminded the crowd that a young country like ours started out with 0.5% of global population and now commands, 247 years later, 25% of the global GDP. A miracle, he called it. That's an oddly religious phrase for an investor, but an accurate one. Jamie Dimon prefers the poker analogy, that America has the best hand ever dealt to any country on this earth ever. Whether it's our geography, our university, our peaceful neighbors, natural resources, rule of law, our work ethic, our innovation, and the core of our bones, the widest and deepest financial markets in the world, and the best military on the planet for as long as we have the best economy. And he repeated that line, for as long as we have the best economy. America is stacked. So then why the urgency? Why are we nervous? Why are we now worried that this miracle of a country is on shaky ground? Why do we sense that we're entering and encountering the greatest unrest since the Cold War? That we've entered the most precarious moment of our lives? Because deep down, we know how you win a war against America. You win a war against America when we stop innovating, when we become scared of the technology and the drive that resides deep in our bones, when we cease to be the world's exporter of innovation and cede that role to the CCP or a global consortium of dunces. You win a war against America when we stop believing that technology is a force for good, but rather black magic to be scared of, feared, controlled, and ultimately extinguished by people who write white papers for a living. You win a war against America when you greet builders with suspicion, when your instinct is to squash the weirdos doing weird things on the frontier. You win a war against America when old companies become too big to fail and squash the new ones around them. When we trust age more than we trust vitality. When everything is old, from our infrastructure to our industrial base to our Congress people, because we've conquered and discouraged the new. You win a war against America when individual identity becomes more important than collective duty. When we turn inward and we focus on our neuroses rather than the needs of our families and our communities. 50 years ago, Philip Rieff called the modern man the psychological man in The Triumph of the Therapeutic, noting that psychological man is likely going nowhere, but aims to achieve a certain speed and certainty in his going there. In just 50 years, our new neuroticism is a meme who would mock men who would rather build things rather than go to therapy, an impulse that we used to celebrate in this country. You win a war against America when we believe the doom or memes and stop thinking that life has meaning at all. A recent Wall Street Journal poll found that faith, family, and the flag, the very things that used to define our national character, have eroded in the last 25 years. Less than 30% of people say that patriotism is important to them now, down from 70% only 2 decades ago. Religion, having children, community, all fared the same. You win a war against America when it's nihilism all the way down. You win a war against America when you believe the planet is fallen and you perpetuate your own extinction. When doom mongers are telling us that we'll need to bomb data centers and people in Washington take them seriously. You win a war against America when our great cities are ruled by crime rings. When businesses are shuttered because security is meaningless theater. When we deride our police. When good people are driven out by bad policy. You win a war against America when fentanyl pours across our borders, manufactured by an adversary that still remembers the opium wars and delivered by cartels that have no respect for human life. 100,000 of our countrymen and women are dead every year in a silent onslaught that's being met with a collective shrug. You win a war against America when toys like TikTok that give our enemies direct access to the anxious minds of teenagers. When you invest billions in the CCP's killer app and just pretend that's the way that business has to work. You win a war against America when you have us both sidesing terrorism. When nuance, and it's complicated, get in the way of condemning barbaric enemies who would slaughter children in their bedrooms as they plead for mercy. When the gleeful maiming and mutilation of entire families is met with a yes, but context. You win a war against America. You win a war against America when you no longer believe in good and evil, civilization and destruction, just fine people on both sides. You win a war against America when many in our media and universities are more aligned with the propaganda of Hamas than the interest of this country. When elite college kids down the street from where we are sitting right now would broadcast glory to our martyrs on their buildings, but would never dare honor a veteran. You win a war against America when the debate is no longer security versus privacy, but our more modern and far more dangerous debate of security versus grievance. You win a war against America when we can no longer speak freely in the land of free speech, when we consume more than we create, when we attack capitalism, the engine of our growth, as though we don't deserve and shouldn't celebrate the fruits of our building. You win a war against us when you have us clinging to false histories rather than the values that bind us together. When we've forgotten the beauty of this American experiment. When we cease to be a nation of builders, dreamers, and hustlers who like to work, who like to win, and who always seek to build anew. You win this war against America silently and methodically, without even needing to fire a single shot. But the good news is, we know how to fight back, and we have to fight back. And we're here because we've heard the call to build against these very dark forces. We know that technology is the escape hatch for a nihilistic world, and that democracy demands a sword. And sometimes we have to use it to defend ourselves, our allies, and civilization. Now, some people have been critical of us, that we named this movement American Dynamism. But I'll tell you, never have two words in the investing community meant so much and stood for something so real, civilizational truth. We often focus on the word America, the obvious beneficiary of our building. But American was meant not only as a symbol of what we build for, but the unseriousness we reject. A global elite that would be so foolish and so inane as to have Iran chair the UN's most recent human rights convention. America is order. That is the order we want. It's the order our allies want, and we should never be ashamed to say that. But even more important than us choosing the word America is the word dynamism, the teleological end to technology supremacy. We aren't American defense or defense tech or hard tech or deep tech or future tech or American deterrence. All of those things are a means to an end. But what is that end? Dynamism is growth, movement, momentum, and opportunity. In the Techno-Optimist Manifesto, Marc Andreessen said, "We believe everything good is downstream from growth. We believe not growing is stagnation, which leads to zero-sum thinking, infighting, degradation, collapse, and ultimately death. Dynamism is life. And we embrace dynamism and the values upon which this country was founded because they are true and they are worth defending. Dynamism makes America the country people want to be from, to immigrate to, and to build a life, a career, a family, or a company in." Tocqueville described America as many things, but he was struck by the insatiable spirit of American dynamism and opportunity. He wrote, "The American lauds as noble and praiseworthy ambition what our forefathers stigmatized as servile cupidity. In America, fortunes are lost and regained without difficulty, and the country is boundless and its resources inexhaustible. The people have the wants and the cravings of a growing creature, and whatever be their efforts, they are always surrounded by more than they can appropriate. It is not the ruin of a few individuals which may soon be repaired, but the inactivity and the sloth of a community at large, which would be fatal to such a people. Boldness of enterprise is the foremost cause of their rapid progress, their strength, and their greatness. Commercial business is there like a vast lottery, by which a small number of men will continually lose. But the state is always a gainer. And I'll repeat that. The state is always a gainer. Individuals may lose, but America always wins. So how do we ensure that we continue building this dynamism? How do we win a slow and methodical, silent war being waged against us right now? Well, it takes will, and it takes courage. Every day I talk to young people who want to work in tech or become founders, and I ask them what should be a simple and obvious question. It should be instinctual to answer. Not about their product market fit or how they're taking a company from 5 to 50 people, but a more essential question. What do you believe? Why will people follow you? I might as well ask them, what is your creed? What will you shout from the rooftops, even if you're maligned for it? It's no accident now that when you go to the Andreessen Horowitz website, the first thing you see is a Walker Percy quote that summarizes the conundrum of modern leadership, the psychological man's predicament. You live in a deranged age, more deranged than usual, because despite great scientific and technological advances, man has not the faintest idea of who he is or what he is doing. To go back to that psychological man, he doesn't know where he's going, but he aims to achieve a certain speed and certainty in his going there. We don't win a war against evil ideologies, unless we know who we are, what we stand for, and where we are headed. And if we lose this silent war, the silent war for American values, it will not be because we don't have the know-how to build missiles and hypersonics and attritable systems and all of the things that we are going to discuss today in haste. It will be because we doubt our inheritance, because we doubt the beauty and the nobility of the American experiment. And by sitting here today, by being here today, we are making a choice to build new things that may fail, because we believe not only can the future be better than the past, but it has to be better than the past. A choice to reject the ideology of doom and nihilism that permeates our culture. We choose to build for America, to fight for America, and to defend America's goodness despite her shortcomings and despite her critics, because we know that American dynamism is true and the key to a safer and more prosperous civilization. Thank you.